Hello. Good evening, everybody. Nice to see some people here.
Lots of people hanging around.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
It's always the awkward part. Whenever I start a stream, it's like there's just a few seconds of silence because nobody's in yet, and you're just kind of sitting there
You're just
like,
kind of sitting there. You
all
just
right.
talk to yourself a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah.
No big deal. There we go. Okay. Hi, Box of Purple Lemons. Hi, Leniva. Hi, Harry. Welcome, guys. All 6 of you that are already here. 7. See, it's already climbing.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
nice.
Hi, Sin. Hi, Swamp. Okay. Nice to see some familiar faces here. Any plans for the weekend, Clancy?
Oh, I just got to grind on those YouTube videos, living the
Yes,
YouTuber life.
especially because it's October and I mean, there's is it just
Yeah.
me or is there a lack of Halloween themed things out on YouTube currently? I'm actually surprised.
Um, yeah, like Halloween focused narrations or just like
Just
Halloween
horror
stuff in
content in
general.
general. I feel like everybody's just either really busy or just been MIA lately. It makes me a little sad, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I haven't noticed as much either. I've been worrying a ton lately about, oh, this is my first October on YouTube doing this type of stuff. And so I kept thinking like, oh, I gotta just really push myself. I gotta
Mhm.
really push it this October. Um, but I'm not sure if I actually need to.
You know, I feel like your content speaks for itself and you are pretty regular with your uploads. So I don't think you really need to overdo it because you're already doing a great job.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
yeah, I mean, I always look forward to your videos. I love your voice and I love, the way you read the stories instead of, some people sound like they're reading off a teleprompter, but that's not definitely not the case with you. You bring your stories to life really well.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
Okay, so let us get started here. So we were talking about you having a different channel before we went on air.
Right,
Um,
yeah.
but what inspired you to start this channel, the horror themed one?
Well, so I started on YouTube. I mean, when I was a kid, I had a bunch of YouTube channels that never gained more than, like 50 subscribers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But before this, about a couple years ago, I started a channel called Second Clancy, and it was just like a real edgelord, like political commentary channel,
Oh, okay.
and that was fun for a while. Then I kind of realized shortly after I was doing it that this is not good. Like I do not enjoy this. I would not want to make a career out of this. Um, and a lot of YouTubers don't necessarily want to make a career out of YouTube, but I always kind of wanted to. And so I kept looking for a way out of it. And so on that channel, I started doing other things, talking about different topics. Um, it kind of worked, but it kind of didn't. Um, and it got to a point where I just hated doing that channel so much. I was like, I got to try something else. And so I uploaded a couple creepypasta narrations after interviewing Creeps McPasta on a podcast I started.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I see. I had no idea. So you're used to interviewing people then. All right.
Yeah. It's been a while now, but I started a pod. One of the things I tried to do to get away from my second Clancy channel was start a podcast called Space Trees, which I did a few episodes of and then completely stopped doing. But one of my guests was Creeps McPasta, and it's funny to listen to that now because it was before I started doing any narrations, and I was just like, oh man, I really love creepypasta. I really respect what you do. I wish I could do it, but there's just no way I could ever do it. I don't think I could pull it off. And now I'm doing it kind of. So it's
And
it
now we
feels
have
it
you
feels
here.
good. Yeah.
Now you're the one getting interviewed.
Yeah, I mean it's just nice to be completely separated from that other channel.
and
Um
and doing something that you enjoy. And I have to tell you, I mean, your channel is what, about a year old, I want to say, correct? It's
I
of the
created the channel.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I created the channel over a year ago and I uploaded a couple videos. Um and then I deleted those videos, and I had maybe like 15 subscribers on it, not much at all. Um, and then in June 20th, around there, is when I started uploading new videos, and that's when I like rebooted my channel.
Oh,
And
okay.
so
Well,
it
it's
basically started since like June of this year.
okay, and it's been fairly successful in comparison to a lot of other channels, especially in the creepypasta community. I know that the true story channels do a lot better than the creepypasta channels do, but yet
Yeah.
yours seems to be the exception. What do you attribute that to?
Um, God, really don't know for sure. It's definitely humbling. It's amazing. I mean, I'm talking like a fucking 100,000 subscriber channel, but still, all things considered, I had no idea I could amass even what I've gotten in this genre. But I think it's just what propelled me was just YouTube's weird algorithm at first, I
Uh-huh.
think, because the first video that got a lot of views, and it got a lot of views, was I narrated a story called Babysitting Instructions. And I didn't put any tags in that video. I put hardly anything in the description besides the author credits and stuff. And for whatever reason, almost immediately, it was just recommended everywhere. And it's gotten
Wow.
like, I think it's sitting at about 90,000 views right now. And my first month on YouTube, without trying, YouTube just kept promoting my videos. And when I say that, I mean just like in recommended search results. Uh, I don't know why that happened, but it definitely gave me a boost, and it got my channel out there at first. And that's not necessarily happening now, I don't think. I noticed a switch where I had to start like changing some stuff up as far as the metadata is concerned and the way I promote my videos. But
Mhm.
that definitely gave me a nice little boost there right at first.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I mean, you've managed to accomplish what it's taken many channels years to accomplish in the creepypasta genre. So it's pretty amazing. And I actually think that you were promoted. No, you know what? I take that back. You were recommended by a friend, and I've never looked
Mm.
back.
Oh
You
yeah.
instantly had a subscriber because, like I said, you're really good at what you do. What inspired your name? What is the origin of your name? I know you said that you had the second Clancy channel, but
It
what
was just
brought that here?
it was just like over a year ago when I first made this channel, I was like, all right, it's gonna be a creepypasta reading channel. I go by Clancy Pasta. That
Okay.
was the exact that was the exact step by step thoughts that like went through my mind. No thought put into it at all. Just kind of typed it in the spur of the moment.
You're just like Clancy and pasta. Close
That
enough. No, I'm just kidding.
that sounds kind of like creepypasta.
Yeah, I could see that. No, I definitely agree with that.
It was kind of just like a goof. I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever.
Gotcha. Okay. And as far as the trees, you seem to like the trees in your logo because I know you have the one that you have right now here, and
Hmm.
you have another tree on the one that's actually on your channel. So what's the deal with the trees?
Yeah, so on my second Clancy channel, the types of videos I would make is I would talk about a certain subject, and I would put nature footage that I shot in the background, and it would a lot of times it would be of this tree, and so people started basically associating me with this tree, and so when I made this channel, I had another icon that used a tree, but then eventually the icon that I'm using now, which I'm in love with, it was made by my lovely girlfriend, Venice. She's actually in the chat. She goes by Ghost Pokemon.
Oh,
Um,
hello there. Welcome.
and she made that icon for me. She also made my channel banner as well. And yeah, I just love the aesthetic of nature. Um, and I kept that on my other channel. And then when I moved here, it just kind of stuck. Obviously got a little creepier. But yeah.
But yeah, nature definitely seems to be something that you are interested in. You decided to bring it here. I really like the magical tree one, the one you have here.
Right. Yeah, yeah. That's my other channel's logo.
Gotcha. Okay, okay, that makes sense now. All right, I see. And what do you have a favorite story you've narrated or one that you feel has disturbed you the most?
Yeah, I have an answer for both.
Okay.
So my favorite story is I really got attached to this one that was called I think it's called My Son Was a Guest Star on Buddy Wellington's Playtime Jamboree. And
Oh yeah.
it was kind of like a lot of people said it was a 1999 ripoff. Um I can kind of see that it was about a dude who had a public access TV show. He was dressed up as a bear
Hmm.
and he kidnapped a kid. Spoiler alert, probably could have seen that coming. But I love the way it was written. I thought it was genuinely horrifying. I just thought it was really good. I thought it read really well, and I narrated it. I cannot stand it when I discover that I mispronunciated a word, and the worse the mispronunciation is, it just the worse it is for me. And after I uploaded the story, I was like, oh, this is like my magnum opus. This is like, I think I performed it really well. I'm really happy with the performance. I love the story. I'm ready for it to be out there. And within 20 minutes, someone commented and exposed the worst mispronunciation I've ever made in a video. When when the dad is supposed to say Optimus Prime, I say Optimus Prime multiple times throughout the video. And I
Oh.
have no idea how I was able to do that.
Oh
I have
wow.
no idea how I was able to read it that way, how I was able to overlook it and listen to it multiple times without recognizing that that's what I was saying and then publish it. So, forever immortalized in that video, you can hear me say Optimus Prime
So
like a goddamn.
here's what I thought you were doing because as somebody who absolutely adores Optimus Prime, I thought maybe there was like a copyright issue when they like wrote the story or they
Right.
were afraid of that. So I was just like, okay, well maybe it's just a ripoff of Optimus Prime. I never thought it
Hmm.
was you who was reading it wrong. So
No,
now
let's
we
go with
all
that.
know.
No, that's
Now
actually
we
what happened. No, no, Margbot, you got it wrong. That's what happened.
I made up an excuse for you.
Yeah, I actually did get a comment that was like, because as soon as I realized that, I felt so dumb. And so I commented like, hey, I caught that error. I don't know how I was able to do that. I apologize. And somebody said, I thought it was attention to detail because I thought that it was a commentary on how the dad wasn't paying attention to what his son was watching and how
Oh,
the dad could have just misremembered and how that, and I was just like, oh, well,
like that's exactly what it was. Yeah. The
good for
deeper
you.
meaning of the story.
Yeah. Yeah, that works for me.
Yeah, see, we all make up excuses for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and oh, another thing that sucks about that is that I also read another story by the same author. It was called um Spend a Night in the King's Inn Motel. I think it's called yeah, Spend a Night in the King's Inn Motel, win $10,000 or $20,000, something like that, whatever.
Mhm.
And and then once again another amazing story. Love the way it was written, love the way it reads. I was like, ah, this is gonna be a great reading. And as soon as I upload it, somebody says Done Tile in the comments. I'm like, what are they talking about? And I realized when I was supposed to say tone dial, I said Done Tile in the video.
Wow.
And both of the stories I did by this amazing author, I did just atrocious mispronunciations. Um, so I feel bad. I don't know.
It happens sometimes, and then you don't really catch yourself, but your subscribers certainly will, and they'll let you know about it, believe me.
Oh, definitely. I read this story the other day. It was called I watched a long lost silent movie.
Hmm.
And there was some French in it, but it was French that was being read by a guy who didn't know French. So
Hmm.
the narrator of
Perfect.
the story didn't know French, and so I was just like, okay, well, I can just kind of pronounce it phonetically and just kind of butcher it a little bit, but I don't need to pronounce it like I actually know French, and that has pissed a lot of people off. I've gotten so many comments talking about how awful the French pronunciation was, and I'm just
So
like
people were not going to let you get away with that one, even though you were supposed to read it that way.
they were, and it was. I felt bad at first because then I was thinking like, oh God, maybe the author meant for it to be pronounced perfectly, and so I emailed the author. I was like, listen, I feel really bad. I realized that I'm really mispronunciated a lot of the French. I'm thinking about taking it down. I was really upset like at first because I thought maybe this was a bigger deal than it was. And he messaged me back and he was like, "Oh yeah, I don't know French either. I just use Google Translate." And I was like, "Okay,
Oh, so for all you know, even if you would have pronounced it correctly, it may not have made sense.
yeah, yeah."
So
So it
it
worked
all worked
out.
out. Gotcha. Okay. So we already discussed a little bit about how your channel has grown a lot faster than other channels in this genre. What are your future plans for the channel since it's doing so well?
Yeah, well, I'm gonna try to kind of branch out a little bit from creepypastas slightly.
Okay. Hmm.
I want to start reading some older fiction, um, like just like old stories, like I don't even know what I'm talking about, but like Edgar Allan Poe maybe. Who's
Oh,
this?
okay. Classic. Uh-huh.
Lovecraft maybe, classic stuff like that.
Cthulhu.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
I'd kind of like to experiment with reading just god awful stories too, like troll pastas and stuff.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
there's
Like
some
the
other
lamp
ideas.
one? Isn't there a lamp one or like who was on the phone or
Oh yeah,
something?
who was phone?
Yeah, who was phone? That's what it was.
Yeah. I mean, maybe not ones that are that awful, but just ones that are like pretty fucking bad still. Um, and let's see what else. I don't know. There's a lot of thoughts going on in my mind of what I could do. Um, there's one thing I want to do, and I'm still probably gonna do it at some point in time.
Hmm.
But it brings up a gripe I have with
Okay.
the community a little bit because an idea I had was to start reading true stories. And when I say
Okay.
that, I mean actually true stories. I
I
mean
was
like
actually gonna
actual
ask that, but
accounts. And then I was like, but that would never work because when people see true story now, they equate it with a fake story. Because for
yeah,
whatever reason, people started labeling fictitious stories as true stories, which
yeah.
is just the weirdest, disappointing, honestly, clickbait um, I think you could even do in this. Because many of the stories that people label as true stories, they have authors who publish their work as themselves. Um, it's it just kind of irks me. I don't get it. Um, I feel like an
You know, I had
excuse.
I had no idea that that was the case, that there were actual authors that publish their work and they also write the quote true stories. I didn't know that because I know that there's kind of a big problem with calling them true because they're on Reddit and 98% of the stories on there cannot be verified.
I mean,
Um,
they're on No Sleep most of the time. They can also be on
oh.
Let's Not Meet and stuff. Um,
Oh,
but I
see, I had
mean,
no idea that they were using no sleep stories as true stories because I know
oh
those
yeah,
aren't true.
oh yeah. Um, I mean, yeah,
Wow,
these
I'm so
stories
disappointed
they
now. But sorry, go ahead.
yeah, it's because that's the thing. At first, I was like, okay, what's the difference between creepypasta and true stories? And I looked it up, and I was like, wait a minute. These things that people are saying are true stories, I would easily classify them as creepypasta, which to me, creepypasta just means a horror story published on the internet. That's what I mean by that.
Yeah.
Um, and so I even went on Twitter and I was like, can anybody tell me the difference between true
Oh man.
stories and creepypastas? And the only response I got was, well, with true horror stories, maybe they could be real. And I was just like, what?
They could
No,
be real.
no,
Wow.
that's and so I really think I think I'd even go as far as to say it was probably irresponsible for people to go around labeling no sleep and Reddit stories as true stories because it completely devalues and just muddies the water of actual true stories.
I agree.
Um,
I agree. I think I think that came about because it was almost a desperate attempt to have something more interesting when it came to the true stories, because I know that when it comes to the true stories, a lot of them just sound the same, and it's just gotten to the point where people are posting stories that oh, I was a 16-year-old girl and I took the bus and this guy looked at me wrong. Creepy guy on the bus who looked at me wrong. Let's not meet again. And it's just like, are you sure
Right.
he
Yeah.
was even looking at you?
Yeah.
There's no real creepy factor there. So I feel like that's why people have decided to maybe that's why they've decided to pick up no sleep stories that are obviously fictional and claim them as true. I mean, I know, like I said, with the let's not meet and things, they are claimed to be true encounters or events that happen, and
Right.
there's no way to prove them. But I had no idea that this was happening with the no sleep stories. Wow, I gotta keep
Yeah.
an eye out now.
I mean, it's just the thing is with these people posting their stories on, horror subreddits like Let's Not Meet or No Sleep. The I suppose the rationale and the excuse is, well, they pass it off as being real. Right. Well,
Hmm.
they I'm not sure about Let's Not Meet, but I know on No Sleep you
Uh-huh.
can't admit that your story is fake. There's a lot of like you kind of role play almost when you're on the subreddit. You have
Yeah.
to say that it's real. But if you message any of those authors, they're not they're not trying to pass off their stories as real. Okay, trust me. I've talked to many of them. That's it's fake, and they're authors that love to write, and they're
Well, I
trying
mean,
to get their fictitious
on the
stories out there.
side in the description of the Reddit, it tells you everything's real here, even when it's not. I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
It's in the description that these are fictional stories. If you don't understand what they're telling you when they say these are real, even when they're not, then maybe you shouldn't be reading stories off of there,
Yeah.
because that clearly means that they're fictional. And I never once thought that any of those stories were real.
Yeah, I mean they're obviously they're obviously not. But I think it's a shame because it's really uh well, I understand why some people did it because of the revenue. I feel like it's a real eye catcher, like, whoa, this is real. The only thing is when you clickbait like that for too long, eventually people just get numb to that. And people are like, oh, another true story. Yeah, whatever. Um, but it's really once again just muddied the water when it comes to actually true horror stories. And
So you said you wanted to pursue the true stories. So what do you plan on doing in order to actually, I guess, have proof that they are real true stories?
I don't know, maybe I could be like true story, totally not clickbait, really happened, asterisk asterisk. I don't know. um, I really don't know actually, which is why I'm kind of like I want to do it. I'm not even sure if it's possible now, because people might just think that they're fake.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, unless you can provide links in the description to
I
actual
mean,
articles. And even then, you could
right.
literally just take an article off the internet, write a story about it, and say it happened to you.
I mean, I could.
No.
I mean, anything I would read that I would label as true, I would definitely have evidence for. But the thing is, I'm not sure if people would even care necessarily. I feel like people would just see true story in the title or something like that and be like, okay, whatever. And a lot of people who click on the videos, they don't go to the description, to visit the original story where it
I
was
feel like
posted.
99% of people don't ever
Yeah.
the actual sites. So sometimes, when I'm making a video, I will go through the descriptions of others, because I enjoy the stock footage, and I think maybe, I'm gonna find a website that they get stock footage from that I can use as well, and then I'll click on it, and the site that they cited doesn't even have the video that they're using. So I mean,
Right.
I just feel like the descriptions are just so inaccurate, and then 98% of the time, people don't even realize that they're inaccurate because they don't bother looking down there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Gotcha. Okay, so I look forward to seeing what you come up with in regards to true stories. Well, with your channel in general in the future. It's just definitely going to be an interesting situation with you being able to prove that they're true, because I
Yeah.
mean, that's the issue I had. And honestly, when I first started my channel, I wanted it all to be creepypasta. I actually branched out because I had a few of my subscribers tell me, "Hey, I really want you to do true stories. Like, I love your voice, and I love the pastas, but I love true stories too." So I started looking into that, and then I ran into that issue where I thought, how do I even know these are true? And then if you look at some of my videos, they say allegedly true because that's really what they are. Even in the
Yeah.
let's not meet and things like that, and they're allegedly true. Um, and I didn't like doing it at first because I thought, why am I kind of spewing this story that, yeah, it could be plausible, but I have no way of proving this is true. But I guess I kind of just got over it because the subscribers like them. And I
Yeah.
try to choose stories that do sound true to me.
Mm.
Um, and if it just sounds way too far fetched, I I don't bother with it. But I mean, getting robbed at the ATM, that can certainly happen to someone. It may not have
Yeah.
happened to the person that is saying it happened to, but I mean, it could definitely happen to someone. So
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah,
that's
I
me.
actually like to do the opposite of that. I love to find stories that are just absolutely fucking retarded. I actually got into the reason I got into creepypastas again is really for the nostalgia of it because when I was like in high school, I would listen to all of the OG narrators.
Hmm.
So I would listen to like Mr. Creepypasta, Creeps McPasta. Well, I guess just those two. I would listen to some others too.
Hmm.
I watched some ordinary gamer who used to do a lot of readings, kind of. And back then, the creepypastas were just different than they are now. They were lots of video game, lots of
Uh,
lost episodes,
yeah.
lots of um, just cheesing, just all around cheesiness to it. And I loved that. It was just fun. It was just really fun. Like sometimes the stories would be just written horribly, but it wouldn't matter because the tale itself was just kind of intriguing enough in a way.
You know,
For me.
it's sorry to cut you off there. Go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead. You go ahead. That was kind of the only.
No, what I was gonna say is it's funny that you say that because I did have that impression that the creepypastas were these, I'm sorry, but terribly written stories that were kind of lost episodes. And not all the lost episodes or all the, subgenres that you listed are terrible, but that's the impression that I had when I came into this community. And I'm sitting here thinking like, well, you're labeling this really great fictional horror story as a creepypasta, and I didn't like doing that. And even now, sometimes I cringe a little bit because to me, creepypasta came from copypasta, which I mean, it doesn't take much to copy a story and then put your own spin on it, or make something totally ridiculous up. So
Yeah.
I really do like just calling them horror, fictional tales or something like that, but not creepypasta because I feel like in a way it almost demeans them.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying there. That's a problem that I have when like talking to people about what I do on YouTube,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm
Exactly.
like I read creepypastas. They're like, what?
Yeah.
That sounds like what? That sounds
Yeah.
goofy as hell. And it's definitely a weird name, but I do think it works, especially because I like the cheesiness of it. But it can take away if people don't know what you mean by that or
Yeah.
are only familiar with some old just really awful ones.
Yeah.
They might think, okay, so it's like a meme.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
When in reality, what a lot of us do who read creepypastas, it's we may as well be putting on like, an old school radio show
yeah,
where we're telling a tale like that. We're not just like you said, it's not a meme.
that's the way I kind of view it. Because back in the day, like listening to Mr. Creepypasta and Creeps McPasta back then, I was the suspension of disbelief was important for me. Now, obviously, if I went around and listened or did any research, I would find out that every story they told was just ridiculous.
Hmm.
But it was still eerie and fun to listen to, um, and kind of like a radio show. It's like consuming it like any other type of media, like a horror movie or just a horror story in general.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think I actually when I talked to Creeps McPasta on my podcast, I think I insulted him accidentally.
Oh, wow.
Because like and I didn't think about it then, but looking back I fear I might have. I meant it in a great way though. What I said is I was like, one of the first creepypastas I ever heard you narrate was one called Mario. he was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." I was like, that it's a pretty bad story, but I love it. Like I love the cheesiness of it. But I think me saying that, hey, this story was bad, you selected that story. I think he got the impression at first that I was insulting him by saying it was a bad story. But I when I say bad story, I simply mean like poorly written. Maybe it has a bunch
Uh-huh.
of cliches. Um, but there's still something kind of, I don't even know. I think it might just be nostalgic for me since I grew up on it, right? I'm only
Uh-huh.
19 now. And so in middle school and high school, I grew up on these cheesy stories. And so now on my channel, um, I read what I think will get views. And so I read a lot of stuff that kind of fits into trends now.
Mhm.
But I really look for stories that are uh, unique and just weird and kind of reminiscent of cheesy stories sometimes that you would read back in the Disney. And that's why I use a lot of Muse music in my stories. I use almost exclusively Muse music because that's the type of music that I would listen to in old creepypasta narrations from years ago.
Gotcha. Okay. So it's almost like a trip down memory lane when you're looking for stories. Because I
Yeah,
mean, I have to tell you, the stories you select also, I mean, there's plenty of narrators in the community who have amazing voices, but then sometimes the stories you select are just awful and I just can't subscribe, you know? But that's something I definitely noticed with your channel is you choose good stories. Honestly, you do. Like they
I
keep me engaged and
I'm glad you feel that way. Because I feel like once again, because I'm not necessarily looking for ones that are like the most realistic
Mhm.
or ones that always fit into the trends I see on YouTube. I feel like sometimes I do get comments sometimes that are like, "This story was awful. Like this is just unbelievable. Like this is it took this thing that happened in the story completely took me out of the story because then they listed these reasons." And but for me, they're just perfect because I'm not necessarily trying to fit into that. I am trying to harken back to some of the cheesiness and maybe cliches and just over the topness
I
of some of the
see.
old stories.
That brings me to my next question. What do you think are some things that set your channel apart? I mean, we have already touched upon, the fact that you try to choose stories that remind you of the old school original ones. But is there anything else that you feel sets your channel apart as opposed to other creepypasta channels?
Mm. Um, I really don't know. I suppose my narration style is I feel like and I could be totally wrong on this. Um, but I feel like a lot of narrators they're inspired to read um, stories in the style of narrators they've already listened to on YouTube. I'm not saying they rip them off. I'm saying that's like their exposure to um, a spoken story, and so they
Mhm.
try to. That's kind of their influence. With me, when I tell stories, I I don't really think like, okay, how does Mr. Creepypasta, how does Creepypasta do it? I've listened to a lot of audiobooks, and the best audiobook I've ever listened to was I believe his name was Steven Weber's narration of Stephen King's It. And so I take a lot of inspiration as like performance and voice acting wise from his performance. And I
Okay.
feel like a lot of narrators are sometimes afraid to get overly emotional. I feel like sometimes it can be kind of stale. I feel like sometimes they try to overcompensate for this lack of performance, for lack of a better word. I feel like this is getting insulting, but they try to overcompensate by putting on a really unique voice, but the
Hmm.
voice stays pretty static. It just kind of stays the same throughout the story. They just kind of have it almost like a gimmick with their
Yeah.
voice.
Hmm.
Um, and so I don't necessarily do that. I experiment a lot with the way I read stories. At least I feel I do. I change the way I read. Um, in some
Personally,
ways,
I feel like the way you read your stories, it's almost like you're narrating a diary, I want to say. Like you seem like you become very personal with the stories that you tell. And that really comes across, in the way that you read them. So it's almost like you're telling me about your day. That's how it feels.
Mm. Well, that's really what I try to do. I try to put emotion into it because there's some creepypasta narrators where it just sounds like they're reading an essay almost.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and even some big ones can fall into that hole sometimes. And I just never want to do that. I want to make sure to that the performance is always decent enough.
Hmm.
I'm not always going to be 100% satisfied with it, but I just always try to do my best and make sure the quality is is good.
Gotcha. Okay. What do you do to prepare for reading a story, or for recording a story? Is there something you do particularly, or do you just find a story you like you said, and you read it? How, do you have a process?
Well, it depends on how lazy I'm feeling. Um,
That's the
sometimes,
truth.
yeah. Sometimes I'll go through some places where I find stories, and I'll find some stories. I don't know why I was trying to hide that. No sleep. Sometimes I'll browse no sleep, and I'll find some stories that I like, or that I think look interesting. I'll read them all over. I'll find ones that are actually really really good, and I'll message the authors, and that's how I would find stories. The other times I can be really lazy though, and I will just be searching for some stories that seem interesting. I'll read a title that catches my eye. I'll skim it. Maybe I'll read part of it, but if it's longer, I'm not going to read the whole thing, and I'll be like, okay, I'm pretty sure this is good, and I'll email the author that way, which I've kind of stopped doing recently because there's been a couple times where I did that, and then upon reading the story after I've gotten permission and the author is excited about it,
It's a
I've
terrible story.
realized I cannot read the story.
Hmm.
Um, this is this is a bad idea.
Yeah, I've been
Um,
there. I think we all have.
yeah, and so now I do try to read through my stories first. But as far as recording, I usually just try to get a bunch of permissions for stories first. I have a backlog of permissions of stories I can read.
Ooh,
Um,
nice.
and then
Proactive of you.
yeah, yeah, I try to make sure I always have something to record. And and then I sit down. I usually have a tea with me, and I usually just try to belt out like a couple few stories at a time. Um, it usually goes a lot better if I have read the stories before. Every once in a while, I've just skimmed them.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess I don't do anything that special.
Okay, I see. So it changes, like you said, if you're feeling lazy or not.
Yeah.
Um, do you is there anything you want to improve upon with your channel
Mm.
in particular?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things I want to do. I don't really know how I can do them. One thing I want to do is I really want to um increase the length of some of my videos because I feel like it would be just better for the growth of my channel if I had a lot more videos that were like 20 minutes long. Um, for me, that takes me a hell of a long time to produce a video that long.
Oh, definitely.
Um, and yeah, I'm kind of envious of some of the bigger channels because I think they have like teams working for them so they can shit out these like 20-30 minute videos all the time.
Yeah.
Um, but someday if I could do that, I think that'd be good because there's a ton of long stories like that I just cannot find the time to read. Um, and part of the reason it takes so long, this is another thing I do need to improve on, is my pacing. I'm kind of obsessed with pacing. Like, I'll go through and edit a narration with music, and I'll listen to it. Let's say it's a 15-minute story. I'll listen to it. I'll be like, God, this is kind of off here and there. I'll go through, spend like a half an hour or more fixing what I thought was the problem, just going through, re-listening to it, re-listening over and over again. And I will keep re-listening to this 15-minute story and then going back and making minor tweaks and just doing it over and over and over again. just trying to figure out what's the perfect pacing in between
Oh
lines.
my.
I'm like obsessed with it because I think it can add a lot to a story. Um, and nowadays, I force myself to not be as obsessed with that when it's a longer video. But when it comes to videos that are like 5 minutes and under, I get just as obsessed with it as I did at first because it's shorter, and I'm like, okay, I can afford to really, um, spend a lot more time
Yeah.
trying to get the pacing perfect here.
Yeah, see, I can certainly understand that. And I think I've said this in other streams before, where if I gave my subscribers exactly the quality that I wanted to give them with every single video, I would never put out a video because I'm a perfectionist. So I will do that. I will say, okay, well, I said this word a little too strongly, or I nitpick at it. So I can
Oh
definitely
yeah.
understand where you're coming from.
Oh yeah, I also do re-recordings of stuff. Like maybe I messed up a line, and yeah, it can take a while. It can take a while. I've been working on my perfectionism in that sense because it really does slow down everything.
Yeah, and it's difficult because you definitely want to put out great content. But at the same time, where's the balance between I'm spending, days or weeks on this 20-minute recording and your subscribers just aren't getting anything in the process? So
Yeah.
that's what I struggle with. Do you
Yeah.
do you have any dream collaborations um
Mm.
that you'd like to do or
Um, I would always be up, and would love to collaborate with Mr. Creepypasta or Creeps McPasta. Two narrators I respect the most, probably. They're the OGs.
yeah.
Um, in general, I'm not too into collaborations um, in the way people usually do them. I don't think so. So in general, I'm not too keen on collaborations where there's a single story and there's two voice actors doing it.
Hmm.
Um, from my experience in listening to stories that do that, it usually doesn't sound the best.
Okay.
It usually, and I don't know why. I think it might be because um yeah, I'm a stickler for pacing, so maybe the pacing's off a little, or maybe they weren't directed together, so the rapport seems off. Um, maybe they were just both had different ideas of how the story should flow. I don't really know what the problem always is, but it usually just feels off, almost like there's not like any sort of natural rapport going on. Usually when I hear collaborations. Um, but that being said, Mr. Creepypasta, hit me up. Um,
He said it here, folks.
yeah.
He's on Twitter at Second Clancy.
Hell yeah.
um, hey, you never know. I'm serious. You never know who's listening to this. I'm actually shocked sometimes at the bigger channels who listen to my interview. So,
Yeah.
you never know. So if I see a collaboration coming out with Creeps McPasta, with you and Creeps McPasta, I'll know. It
Oh
was
hell yeah.
it was
That'd
this
be
interview.
awesome. That'd be awesome.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, have you had any crazy fan occurrences?
Mm. Um, let me think here. I don't think with this channel. With my other channel, I used to. I used to have some crazy fans. Um, there was this one guy who who kept trying to figure out. I mean, he didn't like actively try to figure out where I lived, but when I would do live streams, he would like ask me really personal questions. I'd be like, I don't give that out. um, he would come in and he would ask me like, where do you live? I'd be like, I don't say that. Oh, what state? I don't say that. Do you live in this state? Hmm. So you should probably stop asking that.
Wow.
And he would stop, and then he would come back, and eventually, I don't know how, he figured out where I lived generally, and he started spamming in the chat like, "Do you live here? Is this where you live?" And I would like try to delete the comments and just ignore him. And I told him
Wow.
how creepy it was before, but he just kept doing it.
Do you
Um,
think that made him want to do it more because you told him it was creepy?
I
Like,
think so.
kind of
I
triggered him?
Yeah, I've had weird experiences with people trying to dox me before.
Oh, wow.
Um, I'm not even sure if I should really talk about it, but I have had experiences, weird
Wow.
experiences.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what happens when, honestly, as fucked up as it sounds, definitely shouldn't be this way. But when you make the type of videos I used to make on my second Clancy channel, which are like um, controversial and provocative, because sometimes they're political. I made like anti-SJW videos, so I would,
Ah, yeah, that definitely gets people heated
yeah,
nowadays.
yeah.
So I can definitely understand that why they
And
would want to chase you down.
even if I were to just make like drama videos, I would make videos on like, the latest YouTube drama. Um, and that people for whatever reason take that really, really fucking personally.
Way
And
too personally,
so,
in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. And so some people just get really fucking obsessed, and
Yeah,
it can
definitely.
it can be it can be creepy. It can be weird.
I'm sure. What do you plan on doing with your silver play button? Anything special, or are you just gonna hang it up?
That's a really very optimistic question.
Yep, we like to
Um,
be optimistic here.
yeah. Well, I appreciate it's good. It's good to be optimistic. Well, here's what I was thinking I was gonna do. Okay, I'm going to pulverize it. I'm gonna smash it.
Wait!
I'm gonna crush the silver play button into just fine silver dust. And
Uh,
I'm going to mail a vial to every single subscriber. Probably gonna have just a couple flakes in it, but I want to get back. I want to get back to the
wow,
community.
that's definitely original. That's a first here.
I just, I wouldn't be where I would be if it wasn't for them,
That's
you
really
know?
sweet of you, though. That really is. I mean, I'd probably cry if I broke my silver play button, but I
Yeah,
understand where you're coming
I
from.
wonder if you can replace it. Like if you were to accidentally break it, could you order another one?
Those guys are so hard to get a hold of. I doubt it. I mean,
That'd
they
be cool if you could, because then you could just like you could just lie to them and tell them you broke it, and then just get like a bunch of them.
and now they're on to you, and now we'll never get a replacement one. Thanks, Clancy. This is
Sorry,
all your fault.
sorry everybody. I know I
No more
spoiled
replacement
somebody's.
ones, everybody. It's Clancy's fault. Gotcha. Okay. Do you have any advice for new serious narrators?
Yeah, yeah, you need to try to be original, which is it sounds like the dumbest advice anybody could ever give because that sounds like a no-brainer. But it is true. You need to find your own rhythm. It's going to take some practice. You're not going to be great at first. Already when I listen back to some of my early narrations, I kind of cringe at the way I I did them. And but you you need to you need to what's the word I'm looking for? You need to think of it as a performance, and you need to get into the story because there's already enough people who just kind of talk like this. And then Timmy opened the door, and what did he see inside the door? It was a guy. And then the guy looked out and said, "Boo." And Timmy was terrified, and he ran away. Why did he run? There's enough people doing that. So
Yeah.
I just try to just experiment, be yourself. Once again, sounds like a no-brainer, but it's important.
No, you
And
know what? That's actually the advice that most narrators I ask that question to on here say. They say be original because there's so many channels that, like you said, are totally monotone, a dime a dozen, and they're copying other big channels that, why would anybody want to watch your channel if they can hear the same monotone voice somewhere else, So
yeah.
so it's not dumb. It's actually very true. I think,
Also,
huh?
another thing is you need to have some decent audio equipment, I think. I see some really small narrators that have messaged me and asked me to check out their channel. If you're using a headset mic, that can sometimes work. If you want to do this long term, you should really look to invest at least. Make sure your audio recordings are clean and no fans in the background. And also, another thing, just real quick, I know I'm taking a lot of time to answer this. Um, don't be ashamed of your voice. So your voice is your voice, and there's going to be an audience for it. And I say that only because I know there are some narrators out there that artificially post process their voice to lower the pitch.
Hmm.
You don't need to do that. I don't think that's a good idea. Um, you don't need to have that overly low kind of monotone voice. Be
I mean, that's
yourself.
what I go for in every single recording. I make myself sound a lot deeper because that's what the masses want.
I don't think you need to.
Oh, not at all. Yeah, no, I agree. Just be yourself. You'll find an audience. Personally, there's a few narrators in the community that have very strong accents, and I that may not be my thing, but that may be the thing of like 1,000, 2,000 other people.
Yeah,
So definitely, it's important to just embrace who you are and work with what you have because I feel like in the long run if people find out, like if you're trying to keep it a secret and people find out, it's just not going to work out well for you. So I have to completely agree with that, like,
yeah,
so, and then sometimes people feel cheated even when you tell them, so
yeah. It was I'm not sure. Yeah. So I've heard of I heard a narrator that does this, that, post processes their voice to be much lower. And I heard them without that. And my feelings were just kind of like, oh, that's weird. And then my second feeling was like, they don't need to do that. Like their voice would work, and I think they'd be just as popular without it. It's just kind of, I feel like people just do it because they're self-conscious um, about their voice for whatever reason, and they really don't need to be.
yeah, I mean, I don't know why it is. I don't know why it's done. I'm not going to assume, but yeah, like I said, you'll find an audience with pretty much anything. You may have a strong not accident, a strong accent, and that may be other people's thing. So why not just be you instead of trying hard to be somebody else? And then that may be the thing that sets you apart. Actually, is the fact that your voice isn't like everybody else's. So
Yeah. I mean,
there's always
I
that.
feel like that's really important. If you just blend in, you're probably not gonna get that huge,
Yeah, that's true.
or you're gonna
Okay.
grow very slowly.
I feel like the way YouTube's going, you're probably not going to grow at all.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been really rough lately for this community, unfortunately. But I'm really glad that, it's been working out for you. It's great. The algorithm is mysterious.
Yeah,
It works in mysterious ways.
it's weird. I don't know how to feel about it because YouTube, it's almost like YouTube's like being nice to me, and then I look over and it's punching everybody else in the face, and I'm like, do I am I cool with YouTube or not? It's like I don't know how
Well,
to
you're
feel.
cool with YouTube, but it's not your fault that, other people aren't doing as well.
Right. Well, no,
So
I am very empathetical. Is that the right word? With this,
empathetic.
because empathetic, not empathetical. Because in my other channel, YouTube was screwing me big time. And I
I see.
dealt with so much over there. Like I monetarily wise, especially, it was unbelievable. Um, oh yeah, my my girlfriend commented corporate in the chat on VidMe. On VidMe, they made a video promoting my channel for some reason. It was really nice of VidMe to do, and
Oh yeah, I saw that on Twitter. I remember that you posted that.
yeah, it was crazy nice of VidMe to do. And somebody in the comments was like, Psh, "Fucking VidMe promoting this corporate channel. If you want to see a real channel,
Wow.
go check out this." And I was just like, "God, I'm corporate.
Wow.
I'm
Haters.
corporate."
Haters gonna hate.
It's like,
Somehow you became corporate.
I've never been called corporate in my life.
That's such a weird thing to say. Like, oh, corporate channel isn't legit, guys. Oh my God.
It's like I've always been an outsider. For somebody to call me corporate, it's just like what?
That's pretty weird.
It's almost a
So
compliment.
I could see that, but maybe because VidMe promoted you, maybe that's why they assumed you had sold out and you were now corporate.
Yeah.
You had somehow paid them or something. Like I said,
Maybe.
haters gonna hate.
Yeah, it is gonna hate.
And now my last question. I
Ooh.
know that we have discussed the influence that Creeps and Mr. Creepypasta have had in you. So we're going to put those two aside. But besides those two, if you could meet any other two narrators in the next 12 months, who would they be and why?
Mm. I really don't know if I can answer that question because here's the thing. I don't really listen to many creepypasta channels at all. I'm familiar with some, but only in passing. Um, I really the only ones I ever listen to recreationally are actually Creeps McPasta and Mr. Creepypasta. Um, I'd be fine with anybody, you know. You seem
Just
cool.
hanging out.
Just hanging out.
Gotcha.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, you know, this I like to meet a lot of people because I know there's definitely a lot of cool peeps in the community who do this, and I think it's a lovely bunch.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough. Do you listen to any of the true story narrators?
No, I can't bring myself to do it because I just want to rain.
The quote true story. Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
All right then, you guys in the chat, do you have any questions for Mr. Clancy Pasta? Let's see. Did I miss any
Yeah.
questions here while I was interviewing? Sorry, guys. You know I don't mean to ignore you in the chat. It's just I like to give my full attention to the person I'm interviewing.
If you don't have any questions, that's okay. You won't hurt my feelings. But another thing that actually pisses me off, aside from the true story fad, that I might as well mention here, I guess,
Mhm.
is all these compilations. And what I mean by that is like when somebody posts a compilation of like a series or a compilation of videos that's already been uploaded, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But these people who are posting like 2 hour compilations or just 1 hour compilations of stories that they do not credit. I've seen channels do this. And they just call them, you know, horrifying stories from Reddit, or maybe they'll put the links in the description, but they will
Mhm.
not cite the names of any of the stories or
Oh,
even the authors.
gotcha. Yeah, I can understand how that would be frustrating because it's like, okay, well, I have all this knowledge and it came from Wikipedia. And you're not even saying like what the
Yeah,
titles are.
it's
It's
just
kind of like that. Yeah.
it's like when it comes to creepypastas, I really I view them almost like a movie. Like when I'm browsing a list of narrations,
Hmm.
usually from Mr. Creepypasta, Creepypasta. Shout out once again to the biggest fucking narrators who definitely don't need my shout out at all. Um, I'm browsing it like I would like movies on Netflix or a DVD. Like, oh, that title and thumbnail looks interesting. I wonder what that's about. Or even like the length sometimes. Oh, that story length looks interesting, along with the title and thumbnail. But with these things, it's almost like you're buying one of those DVD box sets, like 200 of the greatest love films from the past 2 decades, like in a bargain bin at Kmart. It's like, what is this?
uh,
It's like I don't even know what I'm listening to here. I don't know. That's more of a personal gripe with me. I don't, I don't
no,
think
I,
there's
I
anything
understand
actually wrong
that,
with that.
especially because people work hard on these stories, and then to not properly credit them isn't exactly cool. So I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Tuxedo Cat wants to know what is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Favorite conspiracy theory? You
Yeah.
know, when I was a retarded eighth grader, I used to believe that Michael Jackson was actually alive still, that he faked his own death. Um, which is funny. Now that's probably gonna be my favorite.
Your favorite.
That's
Okay.
just
Well,
always
you
gonna be
don't
my
know. He
favorite.
might still be alive out there somewhere.
Hey, who knows? Who
We'll
knows? I mean, the reason it
never
was my favorite is because there was this channel, this YouTube channel
know.
of this guy who slowly descended into madness, while trying to prove that he faked his own death. Like
Wow.
his videos started out like pretty normal. Like after MJ died, his
Hmm.
videos started out like, oh, here's some proof. Look at this. Look at that. Is you know, all bullshit, whatever. And then like a year or two down the line, I checked in on his channel after I kind of got out of it, and he had started making weird videos where he was drawing connections between the death hoax and old movies from the 60s
Hmm.
and how that's connected somehow, which makes no sense because obviously the
Hey, it was
timeline
aliens,
is
okay?
pretty skewed there.
That's what
But
I picture.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, it was just weird. It was weird. So I'll always kind of
Sounds
like
pretty
that.
weird. Anthony wants to know, do you prefer cake or pie?
Probably cake. Probably cake.
Why?
Why? I don't even know. I don't really eat cake or pie. But if I could choose cake because it's more spongy.
Okay,
Sponge wins.
gotcha. Robin Hood said, I love your channel, Clancy. Who's your favorite author?
Hmm. My he's my favorite author. Well, outside of the internet, Stephen King is my favorite author. He's the only author who's been able to keep my attention for the full length of a novel, besides like one other. Um, and I just love Stephen King's stories. But on the internet, there's a couple authors that I know of that I really love. Jay Gets Hazy. I don't know if he goes by his actual name anywhere,
Mhm,
but he's the one who wrote the Buddy Wellington story and a couple others on my channel. And then there's another one. His name is Tobias Wade, extremely talented author.
mhm.
Writes so many amazing horror stories that he publishes on the internet. And I'm actually working on a project with him right now, which I shouldn't give many details on, I suppose. But it's
Secret project, guys.
yeah, secret project. But I'm really looking forward to that when I can finally talk about that and when that comes out.
Awesome. I look forward to that. Okay, guys. Oh, thank you so much, Guitar Slinger. That's very nice of you. I think we're gonna wrap it up if you don't have any other questions. Anything else you'd like to share with us, Clancy?
Oh no, just thank you for having me on.
Oh no,
I really
thank you so much
appreciate it.
for
It's a
allowing
lot of
me to
fun.
interview you. And I'm so sorry I was late. Traffic was kind of a problem here in Southern California.
Oh no, that's totally
Um,
fine.
but yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to interview you. And I look forward to seeing what other awesome content you come out with. And I look forward to seeing you grow some more.
I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, have a good evening and have a wonderful weekend. And I will catch you next Friday when I interview the amazing Let's Read. So, Margbot out.